Previously, Zan entered the vault and managed to take 50% of the items before leaving, much to Zhao's shock when he discovered the extent of the loss. Back at home, Yue tried to complete her contract with Zan, but their plans were interrupted when another girl arrived. Zan explained that he could help her as well, and she eagerly expressed her desire to make a contract with him. Now to this week's chapter. Li Lingjun smiled brightly and suddenly leapt at Zan. Surprised, he caught her by the arm and blushed, asking what she was doing. She cheerfully replied that she wanted to make a contract with him. Still flustered, Zan questioned why she was taking her clothes off, wondering what that had to do with making a contract. Looking confused, Li explained that, as far as she understood, contracts were formed either through intimate contact or being physically close to the person. Zan was stunned by how Li Lingjun knew such details, though he quickly realized he could help her without needing to resort to either of those methods. Meanwhile, Yue watched the scene unfold with clear displeasure. She fumed silently, frustrated that Li was trying to make a move on Zan, especially since she had wanted to be the first to share such an intimate connection with him. Zan let out a deep sigh, closed his eyes, and rubbed his forehead, muttering to himself about how these girls were truly a handful. He then assured Li Lingjun that he could help her and began channeling his skill. Golden chains shimmered into existence, encircling them both, as Li looked around in awe and confusion. Raising his hand, Zan activated his skill, Divine Light. As the energy enveloped Li, her clothes began to fall to the ground. She gasped at the strange sensation and let out a soft sound of surprise. Suddenly, her entire body was bathed in a radiant golden aura. She commented on how intense the heat was, her skin tingling as her body seemed to pulse with power. She declared that she felt like she was burning from the inside out, overwhelmed by the energy coursing through her. Zan kept his hand steady, maintaining the flow of energy and focusing on the task at hand, even as the scene grew increasingly intense. Suddenly, the system announced that Li Lingjun had transformed into an SSS-level spirit with her ancient magic weapon form, the Shenong Cauldron. Her divine ability, refining the true essence, allowed her to refine natural treasures or Zerg materials. By activating the Shenong Cauldron, these items could be broken down to absorb their essence, concentrating and extracting their spiritual energy to restore their true form. Seeing the information, Zan commented on how Li's ability to refine true essence was remarkable and praised her talent for extracting spiritual energy. He noted that with this ability, it might now be possible to obtain pure spiritual energy at will, which could greatly aid in breakthroughs. Meanwhile, Li felt comfortable and energized with her new transformation. As her transformation concluded, she felt happy and content with the change, while Zan remained shocked at the power she had unlocked and the new possibilities it presented for him. Li lifted her hand, feeling her newfound power, and asked Zan if it was all real. Zan confirmed her transformation and then asked if she wanted to test her new abilities right away. Feeling left out of the moment, Yue looked at Zan and mentioned she would get some water, telling him to continue. As she walked away, she quietly admitted to herself that she was surprised Li also had a divine-level spirit weapon, which left her feeling a bit unhappy. As Yue was about to get water, she overheard Zhan's voice asking Li if she was ready and saying he was about to start. Li replied that he was moving too fast, and that it hurt. Yue, hearing that, stopped in her tracks, with jealousy welling up inside her. She turned back, thinking angrily that she wanted to be the first to have such an intimate moment with Zan. Then she heard Zan mention he was about to put it in, and Li responded that she was ready but asked him to go slowly. Moments later, Li cried out, telling Zan to stop and saying it was already full. Unable to contain her jealousy, Yue stormed back, shouting at them both and demanding to know what they thought they were doing. She stopped abruptly when she saw Li in her cauldron form, with Zan adding ingredients inside. Zan calmly explained that he was testing out Li's new abilities and then asked Yue what was wrong. Embarrassed, Yue realized they weren't doing anything inappropriate and quietly turned away, her face flushed. Meanwhile, Li called out to Zan, announcing that the refining process was complete. She excitedly shouted for him to catch the pill she had created. Zan skillfully guided the pill into his hand and examined it, marveling at how much Li had managed to extract. He commented on her incredible talent, genuinely impressed. Curious, Yue stepped closer and asked Zan what he was holding. She glanced at the shimmering pill in his hand. Her interest peaked as she waited for his explanation. Zan explained that it was a spiritual energy pill, and after consuming it, one's spiritual energy would increase by at least 1%. Yue, amazed by the pill's potential, wondered aloud if she could eat one herself to enhance her own abilities. Suddenly, Li ran towards Zan, urgently commenting that the fire inside her body was still too high and that she was feeling the heat intensifying. Confused, Zan tried to understand what she meant, but before he could ask further, Li shoved him to the ground. He felt a sharp sting from the impact and, still dazed, questioned her on what she was doing to him. Li grabbed his shirt and looked him in the eyes, demanding that he help her cool down the fire in her body. She explained that he had put too many ingredients into her when she was refining the pill, and now, even though the pill was made, her body was still burning with energy. As her contracted partner, Zan was the only one who could help her. Zan was completely lost, having no idea what was going on. In desperation, he turned to Yue for help, but her sudden involvement caught her off guard. She wondered how she could possibly help with this strange situation. Meanwhile, Li's energy began to stabilize. She felt an unexpected warmth within her. Her energy, now flowing more smoothly, seemed to connect with Zhan's, creating a surge of sensation she hadn't anticipated. She let out a small gasp, feeling the power coursing through her. While Yue bumped her head against Zhan's from him pulling her closer, her energy began to connect with his, as Li had already opened the path. Li felt an overwhelming warmth as her energy intertwined with Zhan's. The sensation was so intense that she instinctively placed a hand over her chest. Meanwhile, Zhan could feel his energy slowly being drained, realizing it was Li drawing from him. Though he noticed what was happening, he found himself unable to stop it. As Li continued to scream as she embraced Zhan's energy, Yue started to feel good from receiving Zhan's energy and couldn't stop herself from joining Li since it felt nice. As Zhan's energy continued pouring into them both. Just then, Li realized that her body had reached its limit in terms of how much energy she could handle, but she still wanted more. As the night continued, Li and Yue continued to enjoy themselves with Zhan's energy. Early the next morning, Zhan lay there, complaining about how tired he was and how rough the night had been. Yue seemed pleased with the situation, while Li rubbed her eyes, still waking up. Li got up and smiled as she looked back at Zhan, commenting that she was impressed with how much spirit energy he had. Meanwhile, Yue smiled and added that his spirit energy had helped her body learn to control her own spirit energy at a higher level. Just then, Zhan struggled to stand up and coughed, stating that they had things to do today. However, he thought to himself, feeling his spirit energy had drastically dropped and still needed time to recover. Those two girls had taken a lot from him last night, and he wondered how it happened, as his clothes had been on the whole time. He thought he should ask his master about it. Meanwhile, Yue just laughed, and Li looked on, wondering if Zhan was going to act like nothing had happened. Li questioned him about the plan for the day, and Zhan explained that they would be investigating the Eclipse Zerg Monster Queen and also searching for their missing team member. Yue, meanwhile, realized that Li was now part of Zhan's group, just like her. She then pulled out a picture of their missing member and showed it to Li, commenting, "This is the person they are looking for." As Li looked closer at the picture, she commented that she had seen this person before and thought back to a nightclub, recalling having spotted her there. Confused, Yue asked how she knew, and Li calmly responded that she frequented the place, mentioning that it was called Breeze Nightclub. She added that it was the biggest nightclub in Deep Blue City. He smiled and commented that this was great news, as he didn't expect to get a clue so quickly. He then pulled out a spray and sprayed both Yue and Li, explaining that they needed to use it before heading to the nightclub. Both girls covered their noses, questioning what the awful smell was. Zhan explained that it was derived from a hawthorn flower. The spray was effective against worms, as they were highly sensitive to the scent. He added that the worms would become unstable and could go berserk if they smelled it. Time passed, and they arrived at the nightclub, where many women were having fun on the dance floor. Zhan approached the bartender and asked if he had heard of a woman named Yingwei. The bartender, cleaning a glass, paused for a moment, thinking about the name. Then, with a suspicious look, he smiled and asked Zhan again if he was really asking about a woman named Yingwei. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and like. It really helps me out.